Hi, I'm Tory. Welcome to episode 2 of the Lion-Hearted Knight podcast. I want to thank you for joining us today as we take a deep dive into what it means to be a lion-hearted knight. In particular, today we are going to look into the mindset of what it means, and that's the first place you have to start is the mind. So I hope you buckle up, you enjoy this ride with me as we talk about what it means.
The Lion-Hearted Knight, the making of men.
On this episode 2, we are going to be looking at the mindset of a lion-hearted knight. Everything that we do originates in our mind. It first begins as a thought, then it either becomes words or it becomes actions, but it changes the way that we interact with the world around us. So the mindset is a very key element, and one reason why we're starting with the mindset of the lion-hearted knight is because if we aren't thinking like we need to, we won't act like we need to. So as we begin to dive in today, I want to kind of lay some groundwork here and to focus on the mindset that it needs in order for us to have the qualities that we need to have. So the focus of our mindset, of what we're looking at today, is understanding that we're not always going to think exactly like we need to. Our immediate thoughts are not going to fall in line exactly like they need to. And so we have to learn how to work with our mindset, how to train our mind to think like it needs to think. And it is a process. It won't happen overnight, but it's something if we're aware of, then we can begin to change. We can begin to improve. We can begin to do and become what we want to be. And so the very first thing of what it means to be a lion-hearted knight, to be a modern knight in the world that we live in, is we have to have a willingness to take on things that are hard. And that starts with recognizing what's wrong in our own selves, to be willing to do the hard things in our life, to develop the habits, to develop the character, to hopefully lead into the good charisma, not to mislead people, but to be the leaders that we as men should be. No matter your age, no matter if you're a young teenager or you're an elder man that has gone through life, we are never beyond the point of having to be able to have that willingness to take on those hard challenges in life. And as a gentleman, and really being the modern world that we live in, having that application, it fits in everything. Whether you're in school, whether you're at work for your boss, you run your own business, you're maybe disabled to where you can't work, but no matter your vocation or your station in life, there is going to be those hard things that we have to undertake, that we have to pursue after, and it starts right here. If our mind isn't right, if it isn't where it needs to be in the space, in the place that it needs to be, then we're not going to be the man that we need to be. And with that mindset, we have to have a willingness, a fighting spirit, if you will, not seeking out the fight, but willing to fight, to take on those hard things in order to maintain, to create, and to protect the things that should be, to make the hard decisions to remove the things that should not be. And that looks different for every person, every situation. It's different, but we have to have that willingness. And that willingness to fight goes beyond the physical. It goes beyond, sure, we need to stand up to bullies. We need to be willing to fight for our country, for our home. If an invader breaks into my home, I should be willing to stand up and protect my family at all costs. I've got to have that willingness, that mindset, that determination, but it goes beyond the physical, not just me trying to get in shape physically, understanding the importance and the necessity of maintaining health. And for me, that's been a big struggle. But I have to have the willingness to fight, to understand what it means, not just in the physical, but also in the mental, in the spiritual, to understand that there's a lot going on around me that affects me indirectly. a lot happening in my life that will have a trickle-down effect and affect people for years to come. And having the presence of mind that whenever I am in those situations, I am in those circumstances, that I have the essence of the fight within me. We referenced in the first episode a quote by Dr. Jordan Peterson that a weak man is not a peaceful man, because to be peaceful it has to be a choice, and a weak man cannot buck against the system, cannot come against the oppressor, the abuser, the bully, but a dangerous man can. And that's really what it takes to be a peaceful man, is you have to be a dangerous man to have that capability, to have that bravado, to have that within you, but to willingly keep it in check, to willingly keep it in control until you get to that point where it needs to be released. And even then, to not just fly off the handle unhinged, to still have the strength, the capacity for strength, to be dangerous to the evil, to be dangerous to what is bad, to be dangerous to the bad guy, so to speak, the bad situation, but to, in all other areas, have it under control so you're not harming those around you. So we have to have the mindset to be willing to do the hard things, to be willing to fight, to stand up. If we don't have that mindset, then we will find ourselves looking for a way out of a situation that we need to be dealing with. And it's sometimes worse not to deal with something than it is to make a mistake in dealing with something. There are scenarios, there are situations, that isn't always the case. But it is worse to ignore when somebody is being abused and potentially killed, as an example, than it is to try to step in and help and not necessarily do as we want to do. Maybe we get hurt in the process, but at least we're putting forth the effort. We're not just sitting back. And there comes situations where we're not the best qualified in the immediate scenario to act. And we need to have the humbleness and the understanding that if that's the case, I need to let those better qualified do what they need to do. But that doesn't exempt me from paying attention and being willing whenever those times come up. I have to be willing, and I need to gain the wisdom to understand, is this a time where I need to act or a time where I need to step back? Is this a time where I can help even if I'm not in the primary role, but perhaps I can be of assistance, perhaps I can allow the situation to improve by me stepping up and intervening as well. And a lot of these situations, I'm being very generic with some of what I'm saying, and so I want to bring it around in a way that you can understand. So for me as a husband, for me as a father, there are situations that I encounter in my life that there may be times when out in public, there may be somebody using very foul and vulgar language. I do not put up with that. I do not like that. So depending on the situation, I may remove my family from that to where they're not having to endure or be exposed to that. Or there may be times where I go up very politely, very respectfully address the situation. And most of the time, people will be respectful in return to you. When you are respectful to them, even when you take a stand for something, people will tend to respect that. So having that willingness, if I'm in a situation where somebody is being intentionally rude to my wife or to my children, it's not out of line when I'm there in some situations, instead of leaving it to them to handle, that I step in, that I step up, that I take control of the situation, of the circumstance, in order to make sure things happen the way they need to. And even for myself directly, I can't allow myself to be run roughshod over. There's a difference between being humble and being run over. They're not the same thing. Being meek is not allowing yourself to just be ignorantly taking advantage of or being plowed over, so to speak, on the job. That I have my understanding, I have my boundaries, and indeed the Bible tells us to be meek. But going the extra mile with someone is not the same as letting them run roughshod over you. Having that balance, having that understanding that I don't necessarily have to subject myself to that. And so if I am being bullied, that I'm willing to stand up for myself with within the realms of what is respectable, of what is okay for me to do. I'm not going to go kill someone, for instance, heaven forbid, as a reaction to being bullied. There are limitations, but at the same time, I don't have to just submit myself to it. I can leave the situation, or I can address the situation. There's a time and there are places to act, and having that mindset, that understanding to recognize and to be willing to do so. So that leads us to the next concept, the aspect of having the mindset of a knight in modern times. And really it comes down to having the understanding that sometimes, and I'm going to use the word gentleman here, because a knight in modern times, a gentleman would be a very apt description. So to be a gentleman, to be a man of integrity, I need to be able to have a balance of strength and peace. I need to understand when it's time to fight and when it's time to pursue peace. I need to understand when it's time to rear up and rear back, so to speak, and when it's time to walk away. There is a very apt description of being a warrior in a garden. And what that means is I'm willing to address the garden. I'm willing to nurture and help things grow, to be tender with them, so to speak. And that isn't necessarily just I'm being easy-handed, but that I'm being understanding of what's needed. But I also need to be ready that when war comes, I'm prepared. That it's not going to catch me off guard. It's not going to catch me to where I'm not capable of fighting. But I need to be capable and willing to fight at all times, but only to pursue it when it's absolutely necessary. Only to engage in it when it's unavoidable. When there is no better alternative, when there is no better path forward. But then I'm willing. I'm trained. I know what needs to be done, and I do it. And there's, for me personally, there's a saying that I actually have on my phone as a background, as a daily reminder. It's number one, put yourself in a position to know what needs to be done, and then do it. Kind of going back to be willing to do the hard things. Know what needs to happen. Be aware of your situation and your surroundings, and then act on it. Do what you need to do. Sometimes acting on it means being quiet, being silent, not doing something foolish, not doing something stupid. There's balance to it. We have to have wisdom in every situation, every scenario that we discuss. Wisdom is essential. It is needed. If we don't have wisdom, then we are a fool. We act in ignorance. So we have to have the understanding, the balance between strength and peace. And we have to have chivalry is a great term associated with the knights that to me, it seems almost forgotten, long gone. And chivalry, it can be something as simple as opening the door for my wife. Previously, in modern times, it doesn't look the way that it did in history. But that doesn't mean that it shouldn't exist, that it can't exist. Because we have to make the good things in life. If we don't choose to make the good things happen, only bad things will happen. And so, doing something as simple as opening the door for someone else, being courteous, being mindful of other people is really what chivalry is not just being selfish, not just thinking about me, but thinking about other people. Having the mindset to be courteous and respectful, not just for your spouse, not just for your children, or a girlfriend, or a mother, or even a father, but all people. Having the respect that we need to have is just a common decency. That's what a good person should do, is have respect for others. And so we need to have respect for all, but especially if you're a young married man, I want to encourage you, if you can have chivalry for your wife, it will astound you the difference it will make in your relationship. Be willing to open her door. Sure, she can do it. She's perfectly capable. It's not that she's not. And in no way saying that she's weak and insufficient, but rather, I'm thinking of you enough. This is something very small, very basic, but even in the small, basic things, I'm mindful of you. I'm putting you first. I want to show you, not just tell you that I love you. But even in regards to if you're unmarried or married, doing chores around the house. If you're unmarried, keeping your living quarters, your room, your house, if you live by yourself, clean. Having the mindset to take care of things, to be a good steward. But that also, as a married man, it's traditionally been in years past and heavily fought against in our society today to the total polar opposite. But men have their roles and women have their roles. And I 100% believe that is still true. I can't have a baby. It's impossible for me to. I am a male. Regardless of what the world tells you, men cannot bear children. Only women can. No matter what they say they are, a man is a man and a woman is a woman. Always has been, always will be. What you are born as, you are. God does not make mistakes. So now that we have that out of the way, understanding that as a married man, it's not her role to clean the house. Now, I understand there may be situations in my life. When we first got married, my wife was a stay-at-home mother. She loved it, and I was more than happy for her to do that. And so she would do things around the house that I did not have to do. She would take care of them because she was home all day. So when the children were sleeping, whenever she wasn't tending to them, then she was doing things around the home. She was willing to be the cook, to be the one to turn our house into a home. But as we've gotten older, I've realized and I understand she works all day and so do I. I am not going to be so disrespectful to her that, oh, she's the woman, it's her place to clean. That's a bunch of malarkey. I live there too. I make a mess. Am I not capable of being clean, of maintaining myself, of being a true gentleman? Of course I am. And so it's ignorant for me not to. So understanding, and each marriage may look a little different. Each person may have some different opinions. Your wife may feel one way and doesn't want you to do certain things. But you need to find the balance. And if it's not balanced like it needs to be, then be willing to have the conversations respectfully, in love. Approach that. Don't just neglect it. What you neglect will degrade. What is forgotten will begin to erode. And so if you don't address those things, if they are never talked about, they are never acted upon, and there's not a mutual understanding, you do great disservice not only to yourself, but to your wife, and you are failing at protecting that relationship. And so young men, if you're not married, be mindful of that, be aware of that going in, have that understanding. Look for the men around you that seem to have excellent marriages. And I'm not just talking that have been married for 1 year or 2 years or even 5 years and even 10 years. Look for the men that have been married for 30, 40, 50 years. See how they are thriving, how they treat and respect each other. And as I stated earlier, my marriage from the first 10 years to now is different. And this upcoming year will be our 20th wedding anniversary. And our marriage looks different now than it did when our children were toddlers. So things can change, but learn from the good people in your life. Don't think that you have it all together. Be willing, be ready to learn, be willing to understand your weaknesses and what you're not good at, and be willing to learn from that. And so one of the most important aspects, being willing to address this, is courage. And I'm really going to throw in resilience with this as well. They are different, so I want to just briefly hit each one. But courage is when it's not comfortable. When you understand that the outcome may not be what you want it to be, but you know it needs to be done anyways, that's courage. Understanding you may get hurt when you go into battle. You may die, but if you don't, understanding the cost and having that willingness to do it anyways is courage. Having that mindset of courage that no matter the outcome, no matter how much I am afraid or don't like this or whatever the case may be, it needs to happen and I'm the one to do it. I'm going to have the courage, the audacity to do it. And then the resilience to do it again and again and again. When I do slip up, when I do fail, when I do something stupid, when I make a mistake, that I'm going to get back up and I'm going to try again. I'm going to be courageous again, even if I stumbled and I fell. And having those understandings, because those are things of the mind, you have to be willing to do that. So I want you to understand, if your mind isn't where it needs to be, if your thoughts aren't lined up to what they need to be, then you're not going to be the man that you need to be. Be aware of your thoughts. Change them. That way your actions can follow them. Have the courage to do the hard things. Be willing to do the hard things and to do them time after time after time after time after time. Being a lion-hearted knight is not a one-time or one-day decision, but it is a multiple decisions per day. I recently had this thought that I came across, and it was basically this: every single choice you make is a vote to either keep things the way they are or to change them. Everything you do will either maintain mediocrity or make improvements. One of the two. What are you voting for in your life? What choices are you making? What are you doing? They all start up here. Have the mindset. Stop and examine your thoughts periodically throughout the day. Am I acting like I need to? And hopefully we can build on this in future episodes of other characteristics beyond courage and resilience to build on what it means to be a lion-hearted knight. But I hope you've gained something from this today. I'm not necessarily the most qualified for this, but I feel that having this understanding encourage you young men, you old men, stand up and be a man in today's world. Be a man in the society that we live in. Don't let society trick you into being something you were never meant to be. Be a man, be willing to stand up, but have wisdom and understanding when you do so. That way you can be a true gentleman in every scenario, in every situation. Thank you so much for joining us. I would love to hear from you. If you have stories, if you have feedback, ideas, suggestions, I can always learn. I don't know everything. In fact, there's a lot I don't know. All of us are in that situation. All of us are in that boat. So I wish you the best. Good luck on being a lion-hearted knight.